Tau Epsilon Phi. This is Jason Burler, the president of the TEP Foundation, coming to you to tell you about our new series called the TEP Founders Series. This new podcast, being hosted by the TEP Foundation, encapsulates the stories of either founders or refounding fathers of their chapter. This new series serves to continue the charitable purpose of our nonprofit by preserving and advancing Tau Epsilon Phi history. This new podcast was recorded in the summer of 2024 and is being hosted by our guest trustee, Brother Stanley Silverman, Tau Omega 73. We hope you watch all the episodes to learn valuable insights into your chapter's founding or refounding. If you are or know of any founders or refounders, please send an email to president@thetepfoundation.org. We want to capture your chapter's history. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you learn a lot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Founders Podcast, the podcast where we interview founders and refounders of TEP chapters. I'm Stan Silverman, Tau Omega 402, University of Rhode Island, class of 79, and I'm here with Omer Taj, Tau Omega, University of Rhode Island, class of 21. So without further ado, here we go. Omer, it's so nice to see you again.
Great to see you too.
Right. How you been?
I've been good. Been pretty busy with grad school and stuff like that. So been pretty stressful, but nothing new.
Sorry about that.
It is what it is.
Yeah. What year of your school and what year did you start looking to join a fraternity?
Yeah, so I first had the idea of starting a fraternity my second semester of my freshman year of college. That was, I think, 2017, the spring semester. And at first, we didn't really have an idea of what fraternity to start, but I essentially had a group of about like 9 friends of mine, and we had this idea, and that spring is when we really got the ball rolling.
So why did you start a new fraternity as opposed to joining an existing fraternity?
Yeah, so by that time, I'd rushed. I hadn't really found any fraternity on campus that I felt like was a good fit. So from there, and like the people in our initial group sort of felt that same sort of thing. And yeah, so we all sort of had the same reason for wanting to start a fraternity, which is, we really wanted to start something of our own rather than join something that, didn't seem like a good fit.
Okay. Was there something about hazing that part of your group was hazed or something like that?
Yeah, so that initial group of me and about like 9 other of the founders, we had started rushing a new fraternity, or we had started rushing a fraternity, and pretty much that like midnight, they got in some trouble for hazing essentially, and they got kicked off pretty soon after. So we essentially, our initial first like 10 members or so, we were all part of that pledge class that had gone bids, but before we had really gotten acquainted with the fraternity, they got kicked off pretty soon.
Okay. And then all right, so why did you go with TEP as opposed? There must have been lots of nationals that would have been very happy to have you.
Yeah, so I had an initial meeting with the director of Greek life at University of Rhode Island, Steve Simo, and essentially he brought me out. There's these steps in front of the Greek house, the Greek life office, and on those steps, there's all the different chapters that have been at URI. And to me, and obviously TEP is one of those, chapters. And what really piqued my interest with TEP over other fraternities was it still had, a reputation essentially. You know, TEP has been at URI for many, many years. So the name, you know, was still there. The house was still standing at that time. So that's really what initially got me interested in TEP over any of the other frats that were out there in terms
Okay.
of starting one. Mhm.
Did you think that you were getting that house?
So I wasn't really sure. The thing about URI is, um, most of fraternity Greek life, um, is does not have a house. So the chapters that are on campus, is sort of limited compared to perhaps how other campuses are. So that was in my mind, in terms of like whether we would get the house or not, but it wasn't like you know, it wasn't the biggest thing for me at that time.
Okay. Okay. So there were 10 of you that started. Did that grow or did that shrink before you guys were initiated?
Yeah, so essentially spring 2017 we had these 10 people, and from there, essentially the next semester, so fall 2017 is when we really got serious about, you know, really recruiting and building up our group and going through the whole sort of process with nationals and everything like that. So from that group of 10, going to the fall, we all sort of started taking it more seriously, and taking action rather than it just being an idea. And from there, our group of 10 grew very, very quickly just by word of mouth. And, you know, essentially everyone reached out to people they knew that, um, you know, might be interested. And from there, our group grew pretty quickly to about 30, 35 people, um, in our initial founding class.
Wow, that's a tremendous number.
Yeah, I think we got really lucky. But we definitely had to put in a lot of work. We were, in those first initial days, you know, we were doing interviews, even out of like dorm rooms, right? Because we weren't an initial official group on campus, so we couldn't even like book meeting space. So we really did everything. Um, you know, we definitely put a lot of effort into it, and you know, it turned out really well.
Sure did. Um, uh, okay, so what was the so once Steve Simo sort
Season.
of steered you, is it Simo?
Yep.
Okay, Steve Simo. So once Steve Simo sort of steered you towards TEP and you wanted that, how did that process go?
Yeah, so I got the information for Jason Burler um at Nationals, and I reached out to him, and pretty much I think within that week, you know, I'd had a phone call with Jason Burler, and he was also very enthusiastic about, you know, refounding the chapter at URI. And yeah, and so met with him pretty soon after that, and yeah, and that was essentially like what that initial stage was like.
How many times did Jason come in and visit you and help you along with this process?
I think he must have came down um 2 or 3 times, I think, that semester. And he also put us in contact with Joshua Delgado, who was actually I think he was the chapter advisor at JWU. And so Josh helped a lot as well, in terms of, you know, coming down to campus, and being sort of you know, the person on the ground for nationals essentially, and helping us through that whole process essentially.
Okay. You said Jay Wu?
Yeah, Johnson Wills.
Oh, John. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I'm out of the circle of knowledge. Okay. Um, so you became the first chancellor, right?
Yep.
So that was for a year.
Yeah, I think yeah, about like a year and a half. I was chancellor, yep.
And then after you came Fabian.
Yeah, Fabian Coronado, yep.
Okay, so he must have also been a, an influential part of your 35-man group.
Yeah, so I think by the time he became president, we had about like 50 people.
Wow.
And yeah, and definitely like his um his leadership helped. It was what we needed at that stage, right? So we definitely had different ways of sort of leadership styles, but he when he came in, that's what we needed. And yeah, and he definitely, worked really hard and helped us out with a lot.
How often? So once you were once you were finally established, how often do you guys meet? See, I'm not used to a fraternity without a house.
hmm
So, and there's an awful lot of TEP chapters that don't have houses anymore. So, how often do you guys meet once before you became a chapter and then once you were a chapter? And where did you meet?
Yeah, so we met at least once a week officially for like chapter, but pretty much our whole group was very close, so we would definitely see each other throughout the week, and sort of informal settings or whether it's like between classes or going over each other's like houses, stuff like that. So pretty much we met like once a week officially, but our group was definitely in contact probably like multiple times a week, if not like every day in some capacity.
And then when you had the formal meeting, that was done at the student union?
Yeah, the student union, yep.
Okay. And then, so how do you have parties if
Yeah,
you have no house?
yeah, so Uri is there's not much that goes on campus. Um, but we all had houses in Narragansett. And we would just, we sort of had a system in place. Um, and usually it would go pretty smoothly.
Did you did you have any volunteers who kept their wits about them during these parties?
um uh yeah, I think with like Greek life at URI, things are very like essentially like um there's like some sort of a system. Um, so we definitely had some volunteers that would help us, run events like that.
Well, that was good that those volunteers volunteered to drive back and forth to campus.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I think it keeps things like safe. It keeps things, from getting out of hand, definitely.
that seriously, that was very wise of you folks
hmm
to I'm serious, to think ahead like that when there's so many unfortunate accidents that happen. And
Definitely.
we had a few when I was on campus. So I really have to tip my hat to you for thinking this through so well.
Yeah, definitely.
So were you happy with the way that the chapter turned out?
Yeah, I'm definitely really happy. I think it's it was rewarding in terms of like my actual like college experience, sort of going through that process and you know, I couldn't have asked for a better college experience. And even afterwards, it's been really rewarding when I hear and when I see, you know, like our group and everyone's still like, you know, friends with each other. Everyone's still, you know, sometimes, you know, especially like seeing, you know, my brothers get each other like jobs in certain places, stuff like that. You know, and yeah, I couldn't be more happy with the way everything turned out in terms of when I was in college and even afterwards.
Well, that's great. And you were happy knowing that Fabian, that you could pass the gavel to Fabian.
Yeah, he was definitely a very qualified to do the job.
Okay. So what are you studying? You're in grad school. What are you studying?
Yeah, so I'm getting my doctorate in psychology right now.
You could
And
fix me, maybe.
who knows, right? Um,
Why would you decide to go into psychology?
Yeah, so I felt like it was really like my calling. Like for me in school, like psychology always like stood out for me in terms of like academically. It was something that I was always really into. And in undergrad I got some experience working in the field. You know, it sort of validated my interest. I found it really rewarding. And since then, you know, I've really loved it. Um you know, as I've gone through grad school and as I'm starting my career now.
Well, that's great. Anybody influence you into going into this, or this was all organic?
Not really in terms of going to psychology, but I will say that, you know, sort of my experiences, you know, starting you know, TEP, the TEP chapter there at URI, that was definitely influential in terms of giving me the confidence to pursue you know, sort of what I'm pursuing now. Um, because you know it was a lot of you know work in a sense to start a chapter and to be doing that while I was balancing you know my academics and stuff like that that really made me realize you know I can accomplish you know pretty much anything I put my mind to so it's definitely so starting TEP was definitely um you know definitely influential into actually pursuing what I'm pursuing now.
That's that's great that you went to school and you had an extracurricular activity that is helping you now in your career and give you the confidence to take on new challenges.
Yeah, most definitely.
Do you have any advice for the undergraduates that are at URI now?
I think the biggest thing, the most important thing really is to stay as one cohesive group, right? When there's a shared vision among like, you know, men of character, then there's really nothing people, you know, that group can't accomplish. I think, you know, we started off like we were just talking about with this that small group, and very quickly, you know, we accomplished a lot. We grew our numbers, we won Greek week, and we, you know, raised a lot of money for charity. We did all those things, right? And that's because we all had a shared vision as a group, right? So the biggest thing I can say is, you know, to really keep that sort of mindset, that cohesive mindset, um, and, you know, stay on the same page, really. You know, every sort of group has some differences, but the important part is not letting those differences really get in the way of, you know, being brothers essentially.
That's 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 a great thing to keep in mind, is to stay together like that. That's a really nice thought. Is there anything else that we didn't discuss that you would like to discuss?
Nothing that comes to mind.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for spending some time with me and for sharing your thoughts, and I wish you nothing but the best in your future, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Stan. Anytime.
Take care, Omer. Good night.
Good night.